Good afternoon. I'm very excited today to welcome you to the 6th gathering of the Lauren and Bobby Turner Social Impact Executive Speaker Series featuring Penn alum and co-founder of KIPP Public Charter Schools, Michael Feinberg. Started in 2010, this speaker series has been a fantastic opportunity for members of the Penn community to hear real stories about real leaders making extraordinary positive social impact in the world today. I feel especially privileged to open this afternoon's session because our guest today has chosen to tackle a social issue that's near and dear to the hearts of so many people in this room. Mr. Feinberg's dedication to ensuring that all children have an equitable opportunity to succeed both in the classroom and beyond is a prime example of how to leverage a sustainable model of social entrepreneurship to address one of society's greatest needs. But first, I have the special pleasure of introducing Dean Thomas Robertson, whose visionary leadership has set the foundation for all of us to understand just how powerful a role business can and must play as a force for social good. Thomas Robertson is Dean and Reliance Professor of Management and Private Enterprise at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. As a member of the standing faculty at Penn until 1994, he served as chair of the marketing department and associate dean for executive education. In 2007, he returned to Wharton as dean after successful tenures as dean of Emory's Goethe Business School and deputy dean of the London Business School. Dean Robertson is an expert at marketing strategy and competitive behavior, the diffusion of innovation, and consumer behavior. He is a member of the Board of Directors for a number of leading corporations and international universities. During his tenure as dean of the Wharton School, Dean Robertson has been a visionary leader promoting our 3 strategic foundations: globalization, innovation, and social impact, to ensure that Wharton remains one of the world's preeminent business schools. Please join me in welcoming Dean Thomas Robertson.
Wow. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that, and I'm glad it wasn't any longer. that was great, but I wanted to leave some time for our speakers. So, well, thank you, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. We think this is a very, very special occasion. And as Jason just suggested, at Wharton, we've taken a position that business schools should be a force for good in the world, and that we have an obligation to society to create new knowledge which helps businesses and social enterprises to be more effective and more efficient. So we're not just trying to be the best business school in the world, but also be the best business school for the world, and that's a daunting challenge, of course. Tonight, of course, we're delighted to have such a great speaker, but before we have the speaker, there's one more introduction, so I get to introduce someone who's also very, very, very special, and that is Bobby Turner, who's Wharton 84. Bobby and his wife Lauren, who's Wharton 85, so he married a younger woman, 84, 85, you know. She was coming along. They've made many important contributions between them to the school, and one of the most important is this Social Impact Executive Speaker Series, which began in 2010. And we've been able to bring in, with Bobby's help, some very high-profile speakers who have contributed to our view of the world. We've had basketball legend Magic Johnson. That was mighty special. We've had Andre Agassi, needs no introduction, or musician Ludacris Bridges, or actress Eva Longoria, and on it goes. Well, most recently, when you sent me out of the country, we had Ashton Kutcher, and I was very sorry to miss that. But tonight we have Michael Feinberg, and Bobby will introduce him in just a minute. But just a little bit more on Bobby, because he has, I think, more than almost any of our grads, brought about very, very positive social change. He's the founder of Canyon Realty Advisors and is the firm's chairman and CEO. And through his vision, he very much has executed a triple bottom line philosophy where we have returns to investors, returns in terms of social equity and opportunity, and environmental sustainability. These funds have been involved in a joint venture with Magic Johnson that focuses on inner city and urban real estate development. They've been involved in a joint venture with Advocacy, which is focused on learning-friendly, environmentally responsible charter schools. And in all of these efforts, those two and many more, the objective is to deliver financial returns, but also to create jobs, to generate tax revenues, and to foster new educational opportunities for students. So in short, Bobby has taken what we're very proud of teaching at Wharton, but has taken it and leveraged it for the community as a whole. And Bobby is going to lead the discussion with Michael Feinberg tonight in a panel kind of format. So let me turn to someone we're very, very proud of and very privileged to have back at Wharton today, Bobby Turner. Bobby.
Of a clicker. So I'm told that I read the Daily Pennsylvania the other day, and I'm told that this not only is the 6th annual speaker in our series, it's also the 1st annual non-celebrity speaker. So welcome, Mike. Real quick show of hand for audience participation. I know the Wharton board members are here, so you'll answer this correctly. Anyone know where the Dow Jones Industrial Average is within 100 points? Come on. Really? Okay. Anyone know where Facebook is trading? Within 50 points. Okay. Anyone know how many kids dropped out of high school last year? Nobody. 1.2 million kids, 6,000 kids a day. Which of those metrics is a more meaningful barometer or indicator as to how we're doing as a society? And where do you want to invest your money? So a few weeks ago, my wife and I were out in Los Angeles, where we live. We had to dinner a partner at one of the investment banks from New York, and I won't mention the bank by name because it's not appropriate, but I will tell you he was wearing a lovely pair of golden slacks. And like most alpha dogs, the minute he got into my house, he tried to set his position within the dog pound. And as my wife and I were giving him a tour of our house, he looked at me and he said, "Bobby, do you own this little house?" I said, "Awkward question, but sure I own this house." He goes, "Really? How big is your property?" I said, "Okay, we're getting a little insulting, but 100 feet by maybe 400 feet?" He goes, "Wow, you know something? Back on my estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, I get up in the morning and I get into my car and I start to drive. And I drive 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 and I drive. And it's not till late that evening that I get to the other end of my property." To which I responded, "I once had a car like that too." I mean, and I tell you this because it's not about what kind of car you drive. It's not about what kind of house you have or even how much money you have. But what it is about in life, it's about being happy. It's being accomplished. It's a sense of accomplishment. It's about having an impact on society. Now, I should have a clicker. Clicker. Liz. Oh, Liz. Clicker. Well, that was easy.
A little harder.
Which one did you hit?
The arrow going next.
Oh,
right.
the one that says forward on it. Okay. So it's about making an impact like we just did. So over the past few years, as I've gotten involved in the Wharton Impact Social Initiative, I've consistently been asked to describe what the initiative is about. Because most people think it's probably about philanthropy, not for profits. Is it the study of sustainable solutions for today's meaningful and sustainable changes? Or does it have to do with the environment? I will tell you, and someone told me to edit this joke, but for those of you who read the New York Times, I think that social impact is a term that's bandied around campus almost as often as our freshman girls are talking to the New York Times about hooking up, if you read that article. But with this in mind, over the last year, I worked with the Intelligence Group, which is the marketing research group of the Creative Artists Agency, to ask the following question. What inspires Gen Ys and Gen Zs? What inspires you, our students? And I did this because I felt that there was a sea change, an ongoing sea change in values of our students. And since these values will heavily influence your decisions about the careers you'll choose, I thought this information would help we at Wharton, help better prepare you with the necessary tools that might help you seek and obtain jobs that might inspire you, opportunities that you might be passionate about. So here's what we learned. Quite simply, what influences you, what your values are, what inspires you are dramatically different than what inspires previous generations. And while the statistics major here today may question the accuracy of the numbers, no one can deny the movement. First and foremost, you all are budding philanthropists. You're volunteering at record levels. Last year, over 63% of Gen Ys and Gen Zs donated your time, and nearly 70% of you donated money to a not-for-profit. Number two, what we learned. Over 64% of you rank making the world a better place as a priority in life. You want to make meaningful change. 84% of you think that your definition of success is different from your parents'. And you have a new value system that seeks respect over envy, values the group over the individual, and seeks a flexible schedule over a corner office. 84% of you believe that corporations are better positioned to change the world than Congress. I'm wondering what the other 16% of you are thinking. Not watching C-SPAN. Only 27% of you believe that making money can buy happiness, showing me just how wise you are. I love this one. Nearly 60% would take a pay cut to work somewhere that's making a difference in the world. And finally, near 70% of you believe that you can run and you can make more of a difference in the world by running your own business than by running for political office. So how does this relate to the social impact and social impact at Wharton? Well, all of us know that one of the three pillars of this university, of Wharton School, is based on social good and social impact. And we already offer over 35 courses as part of the program. But I believe that we need to further elevate social impact from an initiative, from a theme, from a distinct list of classes, into a multidisciplined, multi-school integral part of the curriculum. You see, I believe that social impact embodies a paradigm shift in the way the world is thinking about business. Social impact is pretty much everything. It's a business model, it's a marketing strategy, and it's an investment discipline designed to make all organizations, both for-profit and non-for-profit, more impactful, more successful, and more sustainable. But most importantly, what I love is social impact is inclusive. Socially responsible practices and ethics influence the success of all organizations, bar none. As it pertains to those who are interested in not-for-profit and philanthropy, social impact is focused on finding new and creative ideas, innovative ideas to finance initiatives that are tied to impact. How do we monetize issues in society like recidivism? How do we deal with teenage pregnancy or carbon emissions? This is social impact. Social impact is also for profitable purposes. For the Toms of the world, the Warby Parkers of the world, my own joint ventures with Magic Johnson and Andre Agassi, social impact is the art of balancing a purpose beyond shareholder value with the absolute necessity of profits. It's the profits that enable us and the organizations to scale their impact. One of the greatest takeaways I had from my 4 years at Wharton was that there are 4 ways to create wealth. We all know them. Number 1 is we can inherit it, which I failed at miserably. Number 2 is you can marry wealth. Now, for those of you who know my wife, she is the most delicious woman in the world, but she makes the U.S. government look like a fiscally responsible organization. If I make it, she can spend it twice. So that didn't work for me. Number 3 is to speculate. I heard this morning the greatest measurement to success is buy low, sell high, or sell high, buy low. Well, I have to tell you something. In my 30 years since I've graduated, I've yet to find anyone who can consistently do that. No one can. They're either a great visionary, they're lucky, I don't know what it is, but no one can consistently buy low and sell high. The only way that one can consistently make money is by value investing. Not as glamorous as the first 3. It requires you to scour the universe looking for marketplaces or opportunities that are overlooked, misperceived, difficult to underwrite, and then put together a team that has unique qualities and skills to capture that opportunity. Social impact investing is just that. We're not trying to create demand. There's not a need to create demand for school seats. There's a huge demand. We're trying to fulfill demand that traditionally has been met by either the government or philanthropists. And really, the reality of it is neither are scalable. neither are accountable, neither are reliable, neither are effective, neither are efficient. So think about it. Socially impactful investing is investing in education, healthcare, affordable workforce housing, all inefficient and ineffective markets, and therefore great opportunities for the socially impactful investor. Now, we are the Wharton School, right? We are about making money, making coin. But socially impactful values are applicable here too. So for those of you who just want to make money, you have to recognize that the following. No longer, well, you recognize the following. Gen Ys and Gen Zs have a new form of activism. It's called shopping. Okay? No longer is it conspicuous consumption, but rather it's conscious consumption. Amazingly, in the last year alone, 27% of Gen Ys and Gen Zs that we interviewed started supporting or purchasing a brand specifically because of the brand's socially responsible practices and ethics. That's pretty powerful. On the other hand, nearly 30% in the last year stopped supporting a brand because of something they learned about that brand's practices. In addition to being good for sales, many socially impactful practices can reduce expenses and CO2 emissions, utilizing alternative energy sources, water recapture programs, and switching to things like fluorescent lighting and LED lighting. All can have meaningful impact on the economy and also on the air we breathe. So just how big is social impact? And how might it inspire your careers and your passions? Well, let's look at the numbers. Big numbers, but what do they mean? 17 trillion is the current size of our federal deficit. 4.6 trillion, the state of local and city debt. 1 trillion is the outstanding balance of student loans in this country. 69.2% of adults over 20 are overweight or obese. Less than 1/3 of our 8th graders are proficient in math and science. Nearly 20% of the country is unemployed or underemployed, and nearly 15% or 44 million Americans live in poverty. On the next line, 51 million Americans live without health care insurance, 41 million American families live on food stamps, and 1.2 million students drop out of high school every year. And that's a really bad thing. Why is it a bad thing? Because high school dropouts are 8 times more likely to end in jail, and we spend 3 times as much to incarcerate than we do to educate. My favorite, 400 parts per million. Well, there are 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere today. The last time this occurred on this planet was 2.5 million years ago, when sea levels ranged between 16 and 25 feet higher than they are today. Pretty scary. Reality is there is no secret that when your generation graduates, you will be faced with some pretty daunting challenges, be it healthcare, federal deficits, education, global warming. But as daunting as the numbers are, they also are incredible opportunities for you not only to pursue your passions, to make meaningful change, but also to make money. And depending upon your priorities of who you are, what makes you, one can pursue these opportunities with the goal of making the most money, or maybe making the most societal change, or maybe the combination of both, making both money and societal change at the same time, because they're not mutually exclusive. So back to the social initiative, social impact initiative here at Wharton. What are we? First of all, we function as a hub for all socially impactful opportunities at the university, and we're a launch pad providing students with opportunities to create social impact. Secondly, we are engaging students in social impact projects, and we're providing funding for internships and loan forgiveness. And finally, when it comes to curriculum, later this year we'll announce the Turner Social Impact Society, which will be a program starting next semester, which will reach across all 11 schools in a collaborative approach to creating sustainable solutions to many of societal issues. But most importantly, what I would say we are at Social Impact is we are a work in progress with the goal of creating a set of opportunities that will empower you with the right tools and skills to make meaningful change upon graduation. And how you define change, it could be financial, it could be societal, it's up to you. Enlighten you to the fact that making money and making financial change need not be mutually exclusive. Endowing you with the skills to identify, quantify, and mitigate risks, exposing you to the fact that collaboration is an essential component to success, and embolden you to pursue respect over envy, to seek careers over jobs, and to live for work rather than to work for live. Simply put, social impact's about attitude. So earlier this week, I was down in Dallas, Texas with Mike Feinberg, and we were with Andre Agassi, and can you imagine the triumphant of 3 really good-looking bald guys? I mean, right there. Follically impaired, and Andre Agassi, who's married to Steffi Graf, imagine the DNA for those kids, says to me his son Jaden wants to play baseball, and his son has been bragging and bragging, says, Dad, come out and play baseball with me. I'm going to be a great hitter. So Andre finally breaks down and says, okay, let's go out and play baseball. So Jaden grabs his bat, grabs the ball, walks outside, tosses the ball up, swings, and misses. But Andre's a great dad, so Andre says, strike one, buddy, but you can do it. So Jaden bends over, picks up the ball, throws it up in the air, swings a little faster, a little harder, ball hits the ground again. Andre a little quietly says, really good job, buddy. Let's try it again. Jaden takes the ball, throws it as high as he can, swings as hard as he can, and the ball hits the ground. And Andre quite dejectedly says, strike three, kiddo. But Jaden bends over, picks up the ball, and he's smiling broadly and completely undejected, looks at his dad and says, Dad, boy, am I a great pitcher. And I say that because that's a social impact kind of kid. That's the person who sees the possibilities in every challenge. See, everything is attitude, and that's why, the truth be told, is that the happiest people don't necessarily have the best of everything. They just make the best of everything. So 5 years ago, my wife and I established a social impact speaker series with the goal of bringing a different kind of speaker to campus, speakers that you'd respect, not envy, speakers that are doing good socially, as well as doing well financially, and speakers that might change the way you think about how you define wealth, success, and happiness. Because I will tell you that when I graduated Wharton 30 years ago, I graduated with a black belt in how to create wealth. I had all the right tools. The problem was I always assumed that with the creation of wealth would come the creation of happiness. And I realized in my career that there really wasn't much of a correlation between happiness and wealth, that the only thing that wealth guaranteed was a more comfortable form of misery. That's all it'll do for you. So for those of you who are on the 5-year plan here, you've had the opportunity to meet and see Magic Johnson speak, Andre Agassi, Ludacris, Eva Longoria, and most recently Ashton Kutcher. And they all spoke about what? Their successes and their failures, their fortune and their fame. But the one thing they all had in common was that their greatest happiness didn't come from the fame or fortune, but rather came from the opportunity to have a positive impact on other people's lives. Tonight, we have not an actor, not an actress, not a basketball player, not a rapper, but we have a rock star. Truly a rock star, and someone who I truly admire for really living the dream of making meaningful change. In 1991, Mike Feinberg graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, and like everybody else in his class, he could have gone off to consulting, he could have gone off to Wall Street, he could have gone on with a focus of creating the most change for himself, the financial change. But what Mike did is he went into the Teach for America program and became a 5th grade English teacher in one of the worst neighborhoods of Houston, Texas. Now, very quickly, Mike recognized the following, which is something that I have learned years ago, that in that classroom, Mike could impact the lives of 40 kids at a time. And Mike realized very quickly that if you want to treat a problem in society, then the government and philanthropy are just fine. But if you want to cure, really cure a problem in society, you have to come up with a sustainable solution. And that's when Mike and his partner founded KIPP, Knowledge is Power Program, recognizing that if you wanted to change the template, change the opportunity for inner city at-risk kids, you had to have a sustainable solution. That was, how many years ago, Mike?
Almost 20.
You had full head of hair.
And a ponytail.
Ponytail, nice. You still have it, it's just on your back, right? 20 years later, I am thrilled to say that not only is Mike my friend, my idol, but he is the man behind the KIPP Foundation and KIPP Schools, which today has grown to 141 schools around the country, providing an opportunity for kids to succeed rather than another excuse for why they should fail. And each and every day of the week, Mike Feinberg is a game changer for over 50,000 students in some of the most underserved communities in this country. And he is changing the world. So join me in welcoming my friend, my idol, Mike Feinberg.
Thanks, pal. That was very nice.
It was nice.
It's very nice.
My wife did a good job.
Thank you. Except for the knock on the back hair, but other than that, it was all very nice.
Back hair. So, obvious question. Who's your barber?
Myself right now.
Me too. That's
Yeah.
something in common. So, obviously, the obvious question is 1991, there you are, just out of spring fling. How good were the drugs back then that you said, banking, consulting, I want to go and work in one of the worst places in the world. What about you made you go to Teach for America?
That's a great question. And back then at Spring Fling, I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and I was pretty sure I wanted to go take the LSAT and then go to law school. Not because I don't think I was passionate about being a lawyer, but I thought going to law school would be the next logical step, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And one of my best friends here at Penn from New Orleans, and I had promised him I was going to eventually go to Mardi Gras with him. And for the 3 years preceding, I always couldn't go because I didn't have the money. So that last year, I looked on the calendar and to take the LSAT fell on the same weekend as Mardi Gras. So I went and told him, sorry, I have to take the LSAT. I can't go with you to Mardi Gras. He said, yeah, I figured you wouldn't go. And that kind of hit me in the gut. I like to keep commitments, as we'll talk about later. And so I decided, well, I can probably kill two birds with one stone. I don't have to take the LSAT at Penn. I could take it at Tulane. And I can go to Mardi Gras, and I can take the LSAT. And so there I am. I'm trying to be good on the way down. Everyone is drinking on the plane, and beer cans are whizzing over my head, and I'm doing logic games on the plane. I was good. And I was in a 500-kid lecture hall at Tulane taking Mardi Gras with two other international students. Everyone else obviously was out on the streets. And halfway through the test, I just had this epiphany. I must not really want to be a lawyer if I went to this much trouble to take the LSAT. And so I had this just come to Jesus with what do I want to do when I grow up? And I wasn't sure, but I knew some friends a year earlier that did the first class of Teach for America. And the idea of giving back to society as part of a movement, as part of a cohort, and certainly, going to school here, growing up on the west side of Chicago and coming to school here in West Philadelphia. And by the way, back then I was also a bartender and bouncer at the Chestnut Cabaret. So I was on the streets a lot at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and I saw a lot of the societal ills that plague West Philadelphia in the middle of the night. I knew that certainly, I didn't know exactly what all the cures were. The little red schoolhouse in every community seemed like the natural hub. And I was inspired to join Teach for America. And so I got an internship with Senator Paul Simon in D.C. while I did my Teach America application. And I got in, and they told me I was going down to Houston, Texas.
And do you have much of a say in where you go for Teach for America? What grade you're going to teach? What course you're going to teach?
Obviously, the more flexible you are, the better chance you have getting in. I told them I wanted to go to I'd be willing to go to any urban area. I just didn't want to go into the sticks. And back then, if you said any urban area, you were automatically destined to Houston, Texas.
Right. So you go there, and I think we're all driven by a sense of accomplishment in life. You're now going to go, and you're a 5th grade teacher. As you thought about what you could accomplish, what were you thinking at that point?
I was scared to death. Well, first off, they made me a 5th grade bilingual teacher. And in the Teach America interview, they asked me, do you speak another language? I said, well, yeah, I took a little Spanish. They're like, interesting, right? Writing down. And so when I got in, they told me, congratulations, you're going to be a 5th grade bilingual teacher on the north side of Houston. I'm like, you really think I should be a bilingual teacher? They went, yeah, you should be. You got a pulse. You should be a bilingual teacher. And I asked my principal, you really want me to be a bilingual teacher? She's like, yeah, you can be a bilingual teacher. So first day I had 33 kids in my room. The youngest was 9, the oldest was 14. Half of them didn't speak a word of English. 2 didn't speak a word of Spanish. And there I was with my crash course of 5 weeks of learning how to teach. So it was very much, every day was survival day for me. It was, all first-year teachers struggle. Dave and I were definitely we're on the far end of the struggling spectrum. We were probably the world's worst teachers when we started. And so every day was just, in fact, it was humbling. I remember this time, and I think about this time 21 years ago when I started teaching in Houston, driving to school in mid-October my first year, thinking I had no idea how I was going to control this classroom of kids. I played a little rugby when I was here at Penn. I was vice chair of the undergraduate assembly. I was president of my fraternity. And these 33 kids were just kicking my butt. And that was an incredibly humbling, scary experience. But Teach America didn't pick us because we were great teachers. They picked us because they figured we had grit. And when we were, as I was literally crying on my way to school, trying to figure out what I was going to do, I didn't turn the car around. I kept going because I know I made a commitment to these kids. And we spent the whole year trying to figure out how to teach. Dave Levin had the similar experience where he was teaching, and we had to just one day at a time figure it out. Thank God we latched on to these awesome master teachers in the building, and we ate lunch in the back of their room, and we graded our papers during our plant period in the back of the rooms, and begged, borrowed, and stole all the great ideas and learned how to teach from them.
Were you a good teacher?
By the end of the year, I was a decent teacher. One thing, it takes easily at least 3 years to start to enter the realm of being a great teacher. And by the way, no one learns how to teach in a lecture hall like this. There's something very ironic about the way we train teachers today, where we teach about the 4 modalities of learning in lecture halls, right? Anyone who learns how to teach has done it through an apprenticeship. They found great teachers in their buildings like Dave and I did, and they latch onto them, and they learn how to teach, and they practice it, and get feedback, and film themselves, and get a lot of game film, just like other athletes or performers do, and study the game film and figure out all the techniques on how you manage a classroom, how you motivate kids, how you discipline kids, how you impart knowledge, and over time it comes. So it took several years for us to really develop to become great teachers.
But I gotta believe there's some naturally great teachers that have it as part of their DNA, and there are also some people who are on the other spectrum are probably grossly negligent as teachers. And 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you look at any of the major public school districts, you've got teachers that have been there for 30 years that couldn't educate an egg.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, there's basically 4 things I think that make a great teacher. One, they've got the knowledge and passion of that subject matter. They don't need the teacher's edition to teach. You know, my favorite Simpsons episode from way back in the day, in fact, probably when I was here at Penn, was that, remember this one episode, Lisa Simpson decides to be a bad girl, so she goes around the school and steals all the teacher's editions from the teachers and hides them in her locker. Next scene, they show all the teachers in the teacher's lounge, chain smoking, afraid to go back to their classrooms. Funny moment and a very sad commentary on our schools. You need people that don't need the teacher's edition to teach, who already can bring outside resources in the classroom to make it inspiring and fun. And if a teacher loves science, the kids will love science. Second, someone who can take that knowledge and passion from their brain and heart and transfer it into the brain and heart of a 5, 10, or 15-year-old kid, which for some people, to your point, is a gift from God. But for most of us mortals, that's a skill that has to be acquired over years of practice. Third, just having the attitude of whatever it takes, that we need to be the constant, not the variable. There's 101 reasons why kids in underserved communities are not set for success when they come to school every day. And we got to overcome those challenges and not use them as excuses. And lastly, like any good organizations realized, you want people coming in who are not just rock stars in their job, but can contribute to the organization and buy into the core beliefs and values of the organization.
So there you and Dave are teaching in the Houston public schools, and a number of years into it, you sort of come together and say, gee, there's got to be a better mousetrap. There's got to be a better scalable way for the two of you to have an impact on these kids that are so deserving. Number one is, talk to me about the catalyst of what brought you two together to found KIPP, and more importantly, just for the sake of the audience here, I don't know, how many of you all know what a charter school is and how it differs from a public school?
Oh, good.
How many don't?
More hands than would have been up 5 years ago.
You want to just spend 2 minutes, particularly for the guys that actually can write checks?
Yes. So
In the board meeting well.
a charter school is another way to deliver public education to communities. You look at what we've been doing for the last 100 years, which is we create these tax zones called school districts. We elect board members to govern the school district. The board members hire a superintendent. Superintendent will hire principals. Principals run schools. We draw zones around the schools, and if you live in that zone, that school you go to. That's not public education. That's how we've chosen to deliver public education. And we shouldn't have so much hubris to believe in the last 100 years we've created God's gift to how you deliver public education, and there's no other way to do it. Charter schools are one more way to deliver public education. Charter schools are not God's gift. Charter schools are a nonprofit that can apply to the state to have the honor and opportunity to deliver public education, set up a public school in the neighborhood that's open enrollment. Any kid can come. If you're oversubscribed, it has to be filled by lottery. You have to follow the basic health and safety regulations of that state. You are part of the accountability system of that state. But then take half of the education code, general in most states, that have to do with teacher contracts and length of school day and calendar and curriculum, and toss that aside, and you are free to experiment. and it's more freedom for more accountability. You're freed up to try different things of how you teach kids, more accountability. If you screw up, you can be closed. Unlike traditional public schools, which pretty much serve our kids every year and maybe get a slap on the wrist for not doing a good job, but they're there all the time. A charter school, as I said, is not the answer. A charter school is an opportunity. In the hands of great educators, great things happen. In the hands of lousy educators, lousy things will happen. In the hands of crooks, fraudulent things are going to happen, which is why we have to have great authorizing at the state level to make sure only terrific nonprofits have the opportunity to do this. In some states, we also let for-profits do this as well. But they have to certainly follow the same accountability plans. When Dave and I started, we weren't thinking charter schools. In fact, this was before charter schools were in existence. What the catalyst for Dave and myself was, it was early in our second year. We finished up our first year. We were decent teachers by the end of the year. Our kids love coming to our classroom. They love talking what career they want to have, what college they want to go to. We naively thought we've done it. On the K-12 assembly line, we gave our kids a great fifth grade year. Off they go on to bigger and better in middle school. And that very naive bubble burst about the second week into our second year of teaching, when our former kids will call us up at night, and those phone calls will go like this: Mr. Feinberg, Mr. Levin, can you give me homework? I'm like, well, how come we have to give you homework? We don't get any homework. How come we not getting any homework? The teachers won't let us take the books home. How come they let us take the books home? They say we'll ruin the books. And that went on for about a few months, so about by Christmas time, my well-behaved, intelligent, enthusiastic former students were now skipping just as many classes, smoking just as much dope, joining just as many gangs, becoming just as many parents as all the other kids that middle school and high school feeder pattern, where I was teaching that was happening, where Dave was teaching that was happening. And it was nothing new, unfortunately, those feeder patterns. But for Dave and myself, that problem had now lots of faces, lots of names, which made it unacceptable. And it was unacceptable, but we fell into the trap what started happening. We marched ourselves right into the teacher's lounge, and we joined everyone else and started doing this. It was easy to blame the teachers in that middle school and high school, blame the principal, blame the school district, blame the kids, blame their parents, blame society. We were excellent finger pointers. Until one night we just had this epiphany. It was actually, we just celebrated the 20th anniversary of that night. It was October 11th, 1993, where we went home and looked in the mirror and realized this is who we have to point the finger at. Because all the finger pointing was contributing to the problem, not to solutions. And we realized we didn't give the kids all the academic skills, all the intellectual skills, all the character skills they need to go off and do well in middle school, high school, college, and beyond. Forget passing the Mickey Mouse State test any given year. We want to be on the hook for what's going to happen to our kids 20 years down the line. So we sat down at the computer all night long, poured out our feelings of failure and frustration as teachers on the computer screen, turned on U2, Octung Baby, repeat play, and by about 5 o'clock in the morning, we had the Knowledge is Power program, KIPP, on the computer screen. And the premise of KIPP back then is today is simply there are no shortcuts. We're going to try to provide children all these academic, intellectual, and character skills. Quit looking for the magic bullet. Let's roll up our sleeves and get after it. We were still thinking, what could we do as teachers? We weren't thinking a new school. We were going to motivate kids to come to our classroom from 7:30 to 5 every day, 4 hours on Saturdays, an extra month in the summer, give them 2 or 3 hours of homework every single night. That about should do it. And off long story for how we got permission. Had to beg for forgiveness a little bit. And it turned into schools and eventually lots of school.
So I think in the state of Texas, it was 1995 when they passed legislation for charter schools. And today, I think Texas probably has the third or fourth largest number of charter schools.
I think behind California and Arizona.
So the process was you and Dave, you're starting KIPP. You apply to the local, was it the state at that point as the authorizing entity?
Yeah. Well, when we were starting KIPP as a program, we were still doing this inside the Houston Independent School District. And so, we had to get the permission from the higher ups to make this an official Houston ISD program. So we were meeting with mid-management. It was the assistant superintendent of left brain instruction, some kind of title like that. And she would grill us and say, this KIPP thing you want to do, I don't get it. Is this ed reform? We said, well, sure, it's ed reform. She asked, well, what's new curriculum? We answered, lots of very smart people here in the district and the state have written good curriculum. We're just going to make sure the kids learn it. And that confused her, right? And so, she asked, if there's no new curriculum, how can this be ed reform? We said, well, the kids will come to school at 7:30 in the morning. She gets out her notes. Okay, now I know what you're doing. I can check off the box. You're doing a before-school program. Like, no. We're going to keep them all the way till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, never mind. You're doing an after-school program. No, just more time for, we're just lengthening the school day, more time for reading, more time for writing, more time for math. without sacrificing science, history, fine arts, physical education. More time to get everything done. We wouldn't leave her office, so finally she just said, I don't get this, but if you can find 50 kids that are crazy enough to do this, we'll let you do it. So we started recruiting. We were about to recruit kids around Dave's school where he was teaching, but he won Teacher of the Year, and then a week later he got fired. That's a story for another time. So we wound up doing this where I was teaching on the north side of Houston, went door to door at night on the weekend, sat down with kids and parents, and basically the pitch was, you're about to go into 5th grade. Normally you get told what class you're in. How lucky are you? You now get a choice. You either can be in a regular 5th grade classroom, or you can come to our classroom that's going to be called KIPP. And we're here to tell you what KIPP's going to be about, and you decide if you want to do it. We didn't look at grades. We didn't test anyone. Just it's about the honest and heart. We had this commitment to excellence forum where we all agree the hours and the behavior expectations. And we signed saying we would do whatever it takes to help them eventually get to and through college if they signed up. So we were making, it was for a 5th grade program, we were making a 20-year promise, which, we were on the hook for something big there. And we just signed, and we found one of the easiest things we've done since the very beginning is sign up the kids.
So I think today there's, about 6,000 public charter schools across the country. And
about 2 million kids, I think.
Yeah. But still less than 4% of all kids in public schools go to charter schools. And the reality is that the vast majority of people that start charter schools are good intention. They really are. They're just not particularly good. I think that what I read was the vast majority of public charter schools do not outperform the public school districts in which they're located. What's your secret sauce? What makes KIPP so successful that you've continuously outperformed not only your peers in the charter school or the public school space, but also in the charter school space?
I'd argue any school is doing a good job, public, private, traditional public, charter, parochial, anything. They got 2 basic ingredients. They got great teaching and more of it. It's that simple. Right? Easy to say, hard to do, but it's an easy formula. If there is any secret sauce, it's what's in the culture that allows great teaching and more of it to happen. And especially as Wharton here teaches and Wharton alumni know, great culture comes from leadership. Right? And so what we did early on when we partnered with Don Doris Fisher, the founders of the Gap and Old Navy, to start a bunch of these schools around the country is we decided we were going to find our leaders that are already teachers and great teachers. They got the pedagogy down pat. They know how to lead and manage the children. They did not know how to lead and manage the adults. And if only the adults behaved as well as the children. Right? And so we were going to teach them for a year on how to plan, open, and run their own KIPP-like school and learn how to become managers and leaders over the other adults. And over the last 13 years, we've had over 5,000 people apply for the Fisher Fellowship, the year-long training program we've given. About 190 people have gotten the fellowship. 30 people didn't make it through because it's very rigorous. So we're batting about a 2 to 3% acceptance rate. And I think we've been wrong a handful of times, but we've started a bunch of schools that are really great because we've been so picky on the front end who that school leader is. And of course, that school leader ensured that they would recruit great teachers, cultivate great teachers, retain great teachers, create a culture where everyone buys into great teaching and more of it. And that's why, by and large, our schools have knocked out of the park.
So you and I both on the same page that we believe that there are many public schools that underperform and they should be shut down.
Yes.
Do you believe that a bad charter school should be shut down? And what,
Absolutely.
in your experience, has KIPP ever shut down any of its charter schools, and why did those schools fail?
Yeah. I love that deal of more freedom for more accountability, right? More freedom gets rid of the shoulder shrug, right? I mean, because right now, most schools can say, when you tell them you have to get great results, are going to be shut down, a traditional principal will go like this. They'll shoulder shrug and say, you got to be kidding me. I got a handful of teachers that are horrible. I can't get rid of them. I want to hire some new great teachers, but I can't get them through HR. And God forbid I want to move my art money bucket to my technology money bucket. I got to fill out forms in triplicate, wait 6 months to give up my firstborn. And you expect me to get great results? Right? So the way you get rid of the shoulder shrug is say, all right, principal, you are school leader. Emphasize leader. You decide who teaches in the building. You decide who does not teach in the building. You decide how to allocate your budget dollars. And now we're going to hold you accountable for great results. Right? So that's why I like that more freedom for more accountability, because it eliminates the variable. Either charter school is going to deliver on what it told the state it was going to do, and it should continue to flourish and in fact grow if there's a line around the block. And if it's not delivering, it should be closed, and that charge should go to another group who's got a better idea and will execute on that idea. over the years, we've started 148 schools. We have 141. So do the math. That's 7 schools, right, that are not happening. Are you smiling because you had to do the math? Okay. I have a little chant for how you subtract, so we can talk about that later. There are 4 schools that are still running that we just pulled a name. When we set this up, Don Fisher was a terrific friend and mentor, and he gave great advice on how we set this up. And it was more or less a franchise model. We did not want to run schools from 1,000 miles away. We were going to create local 501c3s. They were going to govern the schools. They were going to make all the major decisions. The one thing that we would license out the KIPP name, and that license agreement said 2 things. The schools had to follow our basic 5 pillars, more time, college prep, all that. But then secondly, we got to ratify who the school leader was, right? So that was our quality control, that no matter how fast our schools wanted to grow, our regions wanted to grow, they had to get someone into and successfully complete the Fisher Fellowship. We had 4 schools where we simply didn't agree. They were happy being a little bit better than the school down the block. Wasn't good enough for us. So we basically pulled the name, and they're still running now as KIPP schools. There's another 3 or 4 schools that we helped the authorizer shut down. And when we do the autopsy on all 7 of those examples, we look in the mirror and point the finger, realize it all comes back to we selected the wrong person to be a Fisher Fellow and lead the school.
So everyone thinks of education, public education, as a not-for-profit. But how profitable are you? I mean, you can't be a sustainable not-for-profit. You can be a nonprofit, but at the end of the day, you've got accountability to your shareholders, which are, at the end of the day, your children that you're teaching. And if you're not making money, or at least breaking even, you're not sustainable, you're not scalable. So how much time and resources is spent on the accounting side, the administrative side, to make sure that you are a sustainable and ongoing concern?
Yeah. First off, what you said there is a huge aha for public education. I mean, you would think it would be a no-brainer that we are accountable to kids and parents. That's starting to shift, right? The typical school and district today do not feel accountable to kids and parents. They feel accountable to the state and federal government, right? So we got to have this shift happen. It's like from Lord of the Rings. It's the Eye of Sauron, right? It's so focused on state and federal government, right? No Child Left Behind, AYP. I have to get my kids to pass the state test. Right? To get the shift happening, realizing there's a higher priority. There's nothing wrong with being accountable to the state and federal government. They're our largest funder. We should be accountable to them. But you get that shift happening by charter schools or other ways to deliver public education as the game changer. Because the minute the kids and parents can walk out of their house or apartment complex, walk right and go to one public school, walk left and go to a different public school, that's the game changer. Because now, who cares anymore how you're going to be accountable to the state and feds if you've got no kids in desks? And if all the kids, like little ants, are marching that direction, what are you going to do to win back your customers? And given any given day, they can leave and go to that school down the block. How are you going to make each day so full of learning, so much fun, the kids and parents would never think about leaving elsewhere?
So let me ask you that question, because teachers' unions, I figured you'd like that one. Teachers' unions will very loudly scream and yell that charter schools are the nemesis of public schools, and that for every charter school job that is created, there is a loss of a public school teacher's job. How do you respond to that?
Well, first off, when a teacher goes and teaches in a charter school, they are still a public school teacher, I would argue. They're just not a traditional public school teacher that is a member of that union. So the union doesn't lose public school teachers, the union loses its members. Reed Hastings from Netflix, who's on the KIPP National Board, I like the way he thinks about this, which is unions have been a problem, but they are not the problem, they're a symptom of a bigger problem. I think the bigger problem is we have a politically elected school board system that governs a government monopoly, right? And so there are lots of special interests that are motivated not to have the system change. And unions are one of those groups who don't want change. But just to give you a quick story from Texas to illustrate how it goes beyond just unions. So, we've been doing a good job chasing the tipping point in Houston. KIPP's grown to 22 schools with 11,000 kids. Yes Prep, another good charter, has about 9,000 kids. And Harmony, a third good charter, has about 20,000 kids. So collectively, the three of us are educating more kids in the entire city of New Orleans right now. We got about 40,000 kids, which, by the way, another 45,000 kids on the wait list. You're starting to see the tipping point happen. We are educating so many kids that it's no longer a rounding error number of kids or dollars that have moved away from Houston ISD. They want their money back. Part of the problem is they think it's their money, right? That's part of the problem. But they want it back. So they started Apollo 20, where they decided that they were going to go out and fix their 20 worst schools. They were going to have longer day, week, and year. They were going to do whatever it takes legally to fire bad teachers and principals and replace them with better ones. They were going to take down the state test banners, put up college banners. They were going to individualize instruction with tutoring and phone calls and home visits. Sound familiar? Yeah. Right? I'm like, great. This is it. Keep running with us. To do what they had to do, though, they had to get the law changed. Because one thing, if they want to have a longer day, week, and year, in Texas, there's a law that says school districts cannot start until after the fourth Monday in August. Right? We start in early August. So if they're going to compete toe-to-toe and get our customers, they don't want to give us a 3-week head start. Right? They want to open up when we open up so they can do a good job getting their customers too. So they had to get the law changed so they could have a year that started when we started. So the biggest group that was trying to prevent them from changing the law, not the unions, the vacation industry. Because the vacation industry doesn't want our children in schools in the month of August. They want them in theme parks and cruise ships and all that. So it just goes to show, and we eventually got the law changed, and we actually testified in favor of it. We told the state of Texas we didn't want a structural advantage. We want our friends in HSD to be able to compete toe-to-toe. It just shows that when you peel back this onion, it gets really complicated. And what we have to ask a fundamental question of, does public education exist to benefit the children, or is it a jobs program for the adults? It seems like a simple question and answer, but when you dive into to that example from Texas with the vacation industry, or with what unions are doing, which I think unions have had a time and place in education to do more to elevate the teaching profession, improve salary, improve benefits. I think that's noble, but it's too much of a good thing that's gone way into work rules that's just now eventually hurting great teachers and hurting children.
You remember when Andre and I went out to raise our fund focused on building facilities for charter schools, we absolutely, some of my biggest investors are public school funds. Mm-hmm. And I remember discussing with the public school teacher, the teachers' retirement system of Texas or California, and I would say, please invest in this fund. It's a game changer for the health of society. And they'd always ask, well, what's the asset class? And whenever I'd say charter schools, they'd say something like ball sack or fuck you, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
They would not be particularly receptive.
Well done.
Thank you. They would not be particularly receptive, and I would say, their comment is that charter schools are the nemesis, and you're taking jobs away, and you're not pro-union. And we would typically respond, well, in fact, we are incredibly pro-union. We're just not pro-teachers union. We're pro-children's union, and they just don't have a say. So talk about teachers for a second, because it's a challenge, I have to imagine. Where do you source your teachers? How do you compensate your teachers? How do you retain your teachers?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I agree. To me, ironically, we align on a bunch of things that unions push for as well. We are incredibly pro-teacher. I mean, again, it's great teaching and more of it. That is a critical thing. We are going to live or die by the quality of the teachers we put in front of the kids, that has to play in how we compensate our teachers, what kind of benefits we give, the work rules, the amount of say they have, how much we listen to them. That's got to be focused on it. What we can't escape from is, however you set it up, what we have to realize is that teaching well is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Unfortunately, teaching in this country is kind of like parenting. It's easy to become one, but it's really, really hard to do it well. And teaching is incredibly, incredibly difficult, and especially teaching in an underserved community where you have a whole bunch of other variables coming in from home in the community makes it even extra hard to teach well. So within the framework of that, we're never going to make this job easy, but what are we going to do to support teachers? So first off, we do pay our teachers more. And we do that because we have a very lean administrative cost. We don't have 5 assistant principals running around the schools counting textbooks. We don't have the assistant superintendent of left brain instruction, right? So all those savings get pushed down to the classroom level, mainly to pay the teachers more. We also benchmark against the health benefits and things like that. We start child cares in our schools, so our teachers with young kids can have their kids be at school with them. I mean, we're always trying to think what other benefits. Every time we get an extra dollar, that dollar is spent either on a book for the kids or on more benefits for the teachers.
Are our grad schools of education failing our students? And I ask you because I was on a panel with Craig Barrett, who used to be the former chairman of Intel. And he's started a wonderful organization, I think called Basis Schools in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And he said at the panel, he goes, one of the biggest failures the teachers unions have done is they've dissuaded some really talented people from teaching. And he would say, let's raise your hand. He said, he raised his hand and said, I, for one, have an undergraduate degree in math. I have a graduate degree in statistical analysis. I have a PhD in nuclear science. I have this, and this. And I am the only person in this room probably not credentialed to teach in public schools. He said what we need in public schools are people that are specialists, that are passionate about math and science and history, that live and breathe that. And what we're teaching out of our schools of higher or public education is we're teaching teachers to be teachers and generalists as opposed to be specialists and passionate about what they're doing.
It's a perfect storm of mess. There's, there are good ed schools in this country. However, by and large, saying good ed school in too many places is an oxymoron. All right, the credentialing process is just ass backwards. Excuse my language. Though I didn't say ball sack, but I say now I did. Now I'm with you. All right, and that and the principal training and management is also messed up too. Like the whole thing is a big mess. So let's start with credentialing at the middle piece in all this. What President Bush tried to do with No Child Left Behind was the right intention. We want highly qualified teachers, right? What they meant was highly effective. What got translated down to states and school districts are highly certified. And so we define a great teacher not by how great they are in the classroom with kids, but again, looking at a sheet, can we look at their transcript and check off boxes? And if you can check off enough boxes, that's how we define a great teacher. That no other industry would do it that way. That's problematic. As I said before, the way we train teachers is too much in lecture halls and needs to be a lot more practicum out in the field where teachers get trained by master teachers. The quality of teachers coming in. We're in this vicious loop right now where too many of our best and brightest are not going into the schools of education and universities. They're going to the engineering school. They're going to the business school. They're going to arts and science. They're not going. Some talented kids are going to the ed schools, but not nearly enough. All right. Part of that I think is just what we need to do as society to make teaching a more sexy profession. We were talking earlier. Think about the show Sex and the City. That I didn't watch it. My wife watched it a lot. Sure. Yeah, exactly. The women on that show dated men from every possible profession but one. They never dated a teacher. Right? I think that's a glimpse of how we value teachers in society. The next Sex and the City show, I want to see the teacher as a central hero. That's how we know we've elevated the status of the teaching profession. Teach for America has done a great job putting a dent in this. 50,000 kids a year are applying, but Teach for America by itself is not going to solve the pipeline. The back end, then you've got principals. So if you look at the 300 reasons why someone takes a GRE of all the different fields of study, you used to have to mark on there what field of study you were taking the GRE for. If you could, the last ranking I saw, you ranked them all in order of highest to lowest GRE score. Lowest possible GRE score, education administration. Lower than physical education, masters. It's already a problem of who's going in and teach. And then some of the worst possible teachers are the ones being elevated to principal. Who wants to work for some numbnut, right? So it's this vicious loop right now. Which, by the way, and this is in defense of the union, same thing. So when you try to negotiate, when our superintendents are trying to negotiate a better collective bargaining agreement, and they say, I want to push more autonomy down to the schools. I want my principals to have hiring and firing authority. The unions are going, you want that idiot to have say over whether or not my members get employed or not. I mean, and so it's this vicious loop we've created. So now that job So what leader wants a job where your hands are tied, where you have no say over staff and budget? So what kind of people are applying for that job? So we've created this vicious loop in this country where at all aspects, whether going into teaching, how you get certified, and then who becomes the leaders, it's just one big ball of mess. That's all. Now, I mean, before we all get depressed and want to move to Canada or somewhere else, we can talk if you want to do it now or later. But I think we've come a long way and we're getting a lot better at it. But it's still a problem.
So you've been wildly successful, but I would challenge you by saying you benefit from an adverse selection of students because your students come from families who have recognized the importance in your success and they have picked their kids up out of their schools and walked them down to your schools. So how important is home life and parenting in the self-selection as to who goes to KIPP? And do the kids that don't have the great involved parents, can they succeed as well?
It's important, but I will not let people get off the hook and make that excuse because it creates a shoulder shrug. You know, a school that believes, all right, we'll do a great job if there's parental involvement. That's what it's all about. Day one, the parents will show up at the school, so they go, well, would have been a good year, right? Nothing we can do. I mean, it's too easy to pass the buck on that. And when people make this excuse, I have a heartfelt response and I have a data response. My heartfelt response is when people make that excuse me, I'll ask them, curious, in the hood, what % of parents love their kids and care about their kids? Do you think it's 90, 95%? Do you think it's 5 or 10%? Right? Because what you're telling me is if you think that we can go into a community and recruit 5 or 10% of the kids and parents, and by doing so, we've drained that community of all the love, care, and talent. What are you saying about that community? And people quickly say, well, that's not what I meant. That's what you meant, right? And so that's my visceral reaction. My data reaction is it's a fair question. We believe the actual proofs are possible, so everything should get proven, right? Prove it. And so we had Mathematica, the Arnold Foundation, and Atlantic Philanthropies and some others gave a grant to Mathematica to study us every which way up and down. And there was 2 easy questions they studied, and yours is the 3rd question they studied. The easy question was just simply, are we fakes, phonies, and frauds? Are we creaming on the way in? Are we trying to recruit in rock star kids? Are we kicking all the kids out who can't hang? And they looked us up and down and realized and saw that actually the average kid coming to KIPP is actually performing in reading and math a little bit lower than the school down the block near where all the KIPP schools are. They also saw that we don't lose our kids at any higher rate than the schools down the block. The harder question to yours is, all right, if we're not intentionally trying to cherry pick our kids, is it happening just by the rock star effect, right? That there are rock star kids and parents looking for better options. Therefore, the traditional public schools will be left with all of the kids and parents who don't care. And so to study that, they looked at our schools that had these wait lists. You know, in Houston, last year we had 10,000 kids and parents want to come to our schools. We only had room for 2,000. So we were saying, sorry, no room to 8,000 kids and parents who want to come. So if you look at that pool, if we hypothesize for a minute that, all right, there is a rock star effect, then that pool of 10,000 kids and parents, they should be fine wherever they go, if that's the factor. So Mathematica tracked who got into our lottery, who did not get in, and they followed them for the last 4 to 5 years. And what they just published this report last year, even looking at those 2 groups, the KIPP kids outperformed the control group every grade, every subject. So I'm not saying that parental support is not important. We think it is. All right, I'm saying, but that by itself is not the only factor. And we also believe it's within a school sphere of influence to create parental support. If you view kids and parents as your customers, then you are going to knock on doors. You're going to go out in the community. You're going to sit down with parents in the living room, and you're going to form these partnerships where they are going to become more supportive too.
So, sphere of influence. 48% of 5th graders have early stages juvenile diabetes and are obese. It's
a problem.
I would imagine that in your schools, in the communities you're in, probably 70% plus qualify for Title I free and or reduced lunches. Is it in your sphere of influence?
80 to 90%. Yep.
So what sort of obligation do you have
Yeah.
to influence their dietary habits when you, in fact, are serving 2/3 of their meals every day?
It's on the list. It's important. I mean, here's the thing. If the eye of Sauron does not shift, and all we're trying to do is be accountable to state and federal government, then who gives a flying fat rat about that? Because all we care about are can they pass at the end of the year? Can they sit down for 2 hours and show that they can read and math at minimal level? Phew, we got it. That's all we care about. If we believe that promises of children are sacred, and we promise the kid and the parent, we're going to help you get to and through college and have a great life, then certainly physical and mental health is on the list to make sure happens. Not to mention you connect the dots and realize you're also not going to do a good job with reading and math if the kid's out sick all the time because they have poor physical health. Now, it's important, but at the same time, there's also a culture of discipline we got going on. We can't do everything for everyone. But what that points to is we've had to be pragmatic and find who else in the community are good at these things and how we partner with them. So food, for example, several of our regions have partnered with Revolution Foods, which was on your slide earlier, which is a for-profit company, which are basically the Teach for America of school lunch. They're trying to figure out how you make school breakfast and lunch more healthy and get kids to eat it. That's a big and, right? It's easy to make school lunch more healthy, but then, when the kids see Brussels sprouts, they run away, right? So you got to hide the Brussels sprouts inside the tacos, right? Which is the Revolution Foods learning how to do that. We've also learned, in Houston, we're partnering with Legacy Community Healthcare, right? So instead of, having a school nurse in our schools, which, by the way, with lots of budget cuts, a lot of our schools don't even have school nurses. They have a clinic assistant, which can put Band-Aids on kids and call 911. That's about it, right? We've outsourced all that to Legacy Healthcare. They know how they know how to work the Medicaid system so that they set up our clinics as Medicaid clinics. They enroll the majority of our families. So when a kid shows up, they can treat that kid. And it's not a clinic assistant, it's not a nurse, it's a nurse practitioner with a roving doctor. So now, actually, when the kid has the sniffles, not only are the parents thinking, maybe I should leave the kids home, they're actually saying, more than ever, you need to go to school, because right away, you need to get seen by the clinic, right? And instead, it's beyond the fact the kid's in school, the other thing happening, the parents not taking off half a day from work to go to the emergency room at the county hospital to wait 5 hours to be seen. So the family's better off for it. So we're having this effect on our kids without us doing it because we've found partners that are great at this.
So to and through.
To and through, baby.
Now, first of all, by a show of hands, who here is a graduate of the KIPP organization? Nice. So we'll see you for sushi later. So it went from to and now through. So what percent of KIPPsters graduate KIPP?
Graduate KIPP?
Just graduate KIPP.
Hard to give you that answer because you're using the G word. Graduation is reserved for high school and college.
Okay.
And for the first decade, we didn't have a high school. We were 5th grade through 8th grade. Then we would send all the kids to great high school. So the way we track it, we track from 8th grade to be more transparent. So to answer your question, I can tell you that 100% of my kids graduated high school and went to college if I look at my class of 2013.
So let's just stick with
But that's not an honest answer because those are not exact same kids we started with back in the day. We look at our 8th graders and whether, now we have primary school, now we have high school. A bunch of them stay with us for high school, but some go elsewhere. Wherever they go to high school, we track them, they're a denominator. Nationally, 85% of our kids are going to college, and to date, of the ones old enough to have graduated, 48% have graduated, going from our 8th graders. And we think about that, and I should mention another 15% are persisting, defined as they're on the Mike Feinberg plan from Penn. They're having a really good time in college. It's time for them to leave. We'll get them to graduate. We think about, forget the 50%, the 48%, we think about that two ways. Compared to 8% of low-income kids who graduated, right? We're 6 times the national average. We celebrate that. Compared to 31% of all Americans with a college degree, we're well above that. We celebrate that. Compared to 80% of top quartile income kids who graduate from college, we're well below that number. We have an achievement gap, which is why we have to get better, and we have to find institutions of higher education who are also passionate about closing this achievement gap. And by the way, I'm proud to say that we're both sitting at the first Ivy League university in the country to partner with us because Penn is extremely passionate about making sure there's no achievement gap between first-generation low-income kids and everyone else. And so kudos to Penn for that.
I have a couple more questions for for you, and then I want to open up to some questions from the audience. My daughter, who's a precocious little kid, said to me, actually had a school exam and a question for homework. She came home and said, Daddy, I've got to go back to my teacher, and we all asked our parents, what do you want your epitaph to read? So I said, sweetie, Daddy went to Wharton. I don't know what the fuck epitaph means. Fair enough. So my daughter looks at me and goes, Daddy, what do you want your tombstone to read? So I said, you know what, it changes in life. Because when I graduated Wharton, I wanted my tombstone to read, Daddy made the most change. Financially. Had the most change in his pocket. And as I've gotten older and wiser and more follically challenged, it's now, Daddy has made the most change in the world. As you look at your kids, what's your legacy? What do you want your epitaph to read?
Well, the Spinal Tap answer would be, here lies Mike Feinberg and why not? What do I want my epitaph? You know, I don't know. I don't want. I'm not. I got my head down, focused on keeping promises to children. So I'm not planning to die anytime soon. A lot more work to do. Huh?
Here's Mike who never broke a promise. Here lies Mike who never broke a promise.
I'll take that.
We have a couple. For those of you who have questions, we've got podium mics here. You can sort of line up there while you're coming down. A couple questions from. I don't know if Grant Scavello is here from Wayne, Pennsylvania. If you're not here, I'm not asking you a question, dude. If you're here, raise your hand. No? How about Jonathan Paz? You here, Jonathan? These people think we're going to answer the questions if they're not here. Ashley McLeod? Ashley? I'm going to pretend Ashley's not here either. Kyle Klopsick? Kyle? Say, someone pretend to be one of these people.
Are they good questions?
Alex Thorne. Alex, all right. Good job, Alex. How have KIPP schools engaged parents in the education process, and how key to that is your success?
Kind of we talked about earlier, it's really important. It's a three-legged stool between teachers, parents, and kids. Now, we say we can still stand on two legs, but it's still much stronger when you got all three partnerships going. We don't wait for the parents to come to us. Most public schools sit there in the teacher's lounge in the library and put flip charts up and strategize what can we do to get the parents to show up. And so it just doesn't make sense. Why not go to the parents? One of the easiest things we've done is recruit kids and parents who want to come to KIPP, and it's because we knock on the doors. Even with a 10,000 kid wait list, when we pull the lottery, we'll still go to the apartment or the house, knock on the door, sit down with them, and it's a Jerry Maguire moment, right? We have them at hello. We are the first teacher ever visit their home, right? And we sit down on the living room couch or the kitchen table. We talk for 45 minutes about the hopes, dreams, aspirations for their child or grandchild, and we got them hooked, right? And so by forging that relationship, we've now made it a lot easier because we've gone to their house. They now feel it's a lot easier to come to our house, to come to the school, and we build that relationship over time.
For sure. Young lady over here.
Hi, Mr. Feinberg.
Hi. Call me Mike.
Hi,
You've
Mike.
gone to college. You can do it.
My name's Hannah. I'm a senior in Wharton, and your story quite literally hits home. I was born and for a large part of my life was raised in Houston. I went to West University Elementary School in HISD system. And kind of one of my earliest memories, and this will tie into my question, is even as a kindergarten student, I remember leaving the classroom and you have a whole row of moms waiting to pick you up. And I had a really good friend who would always take the bus. And it really bothered me. I didn't understand, and I would ask my mom, well, Mom, like, why does Tia have to take the bus? And one of the things that she talked about, or my mom said to me, she goes, well, you know, Tia's mom works, and so she can't pick her up. And it always really bothered me. And that ties in, I know we talked a little bit about parental care, but kind of more than that, what I would like to understand is, we also talked about the benefits that your school system provides if, you know, you have that extra capital. So for the parents that work, that doesn't mean that they necessarily don't have the parental care involvement if they're just not able to. So in that kind of situation, how can we provide services for those students? And Bobby, you know, you can chime in with the communities that you kind of build. What can we do for those students?
You know, at a very basic level, all we've really done at KIPP is taken your traditional school day a before-school program, an after-school program, a weekend program, a summer program, and just went school. Instead of having kids go from organization to organization, agency to agency during the day, week, and year, have them stay under one dedicated roof with one dedicated faculty, with one dedicated culture and mission and vision and all that. And when you think about the hours we have, by having kids come to school from 7:30 to 5, that matches up much better for working parents. One of the biggest challenges for any family where the parents work, or what do you do with your kid from 3 to 6? And then any police department will tell you that's those hours, the bane of their existence. That's when all juvenile crime happens. So, beyond low bar, how you reduce crime, high bar, how do you get kids in productive places that they want to be, where they're still having fun and they're learning, and beyond preventing crime, you're actually enabling great education and more kids to come to places like Penn, right? And so that we just feel that's why the hours are so important.
And productive homes. So we recently raised $1 billion fund focused on workforce housing. And what we're doing is we're buying all the housing around all the schools we're building for Mike, recognizing that regardless of what Mike does during the day, if these kids go home to an unsafe, unnurturing environment full of crack dealers and prostitutes and gang members, everything that Mike has accomplished during the day go out the window. So people say, how do you make money in low-income housing? Well, you can raise rents, which is the inopportunity thing to do, or you can increase tenancy, reduce costs by increasing tenancy, and you increase tenancy by providing relevant services. So we've teamed with Mike and Teach for America, where we actually subsidize housing for the teachers that work across the street. They may now live in our communities for free. In return, they provide mentoring and tutoring for residents' children within our communities. We provide free housing for nurse practitioners. We provide free housing for police, addressing the issues of the community. So we're working collaboratively across healthcare, across nutrition, across education, and across affordable quality living as well. Thank you. Over here.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for speaking.
Hi.
My name's David. I'm a senior in Wharton right now. I was wondering if you could share a bit more on your time here at Penn as an undergrad and kind of what you studied and maybe some of the things that inspired you to go into the field that you did. Maybe provide some advice also just for Penn students in general on how to kind of find what they're passionate about.
Yeah. I was an international relations major, so that prepared me well to teach kids how to reduce fractions. I learned. I think I got a terrific liberal arts education where I learned how to think critically. I learned how to solve problems. Also a huge thing for me was I learned how to communicate, especially writing. I remember my freshman English seminar, Thea Diamond. I remember I turned in a 5-page Sun Also Rises Hemingway paper. It was double spaced. I got it back. I got a C+, which I didn't get a C+ in high school, so that threw me. She filled in between every space she wrote. The back of every page, she filled it up. She wrote twice as much as I did in feedback. And I had to do 7 revisions of that paper, and I finally got an A- on it on the 7th revision. So I remember, and that's the example of a great teacher. So she taught me how to write, and certainly what I had to do as a teacher, as a leader, and garner support of the community, be able to communicate effectively orally as well as written communication was huge. Beyond that, my time, being a leader in my fraternity, I learned how to make a good creative shirt for events, which served us well when we started schools, because KIPP is very good at shirts and signage today. So that I learned that very well there. And I think again, time and being involved in student government and learned a lot there. And even again, being a bouncer and a bartender at Chestnut Cabaret. One of the worst places to be in any fight is in the middle, right? And I was in the middle of lots of fights, right? Trying to break them up. And so you learn how to handle conflict, right? You learn how to diffuse situations. As a bartender, you learn how to deal with 20 people screaming at you at once, all wanting something right away, and how you serve 20 people really well. So I mean, those might not be academic skills, but those are non-cognitive skills that we've put to use one way or the other at KIPP over the years.
So we have time for a couple more questions. This gentleman has a name badge, which means he's either on the undergraduate board of Wharton, the graduate board of Wharton, or the board of overseers. so it probably won't be the easiest question yet tonight.
I'm ready for it.
It won't be an easy question, but Mike, nice to meet you. My name is David Mounts. I'm on the Wharton Alumni Board. And I have a company in North Carolina today where we're a technology services company. We can't find all the talent that we need. In our state of North Carolina, we have, in the STEM jobs, we have about 60% of the talent we need to fill the jobs that we have. The nation is far behind so many other nations in terms of education and STEM. How do we, given that you've got the unit, I will to use a business term, you've got the unit economics right, it feels like you got the proof points there. How do we get exponential growth in terms of what you're doing, and what's your perfect world for that exponential growth?
Yeah, it's a great question. Isn't it Canyon Agassi, I thought, right? Okay. So you know, this is, as our mentor teacher, Harry Ball, taught us back in the day, if you plant corn, corn will grow. We haven't planted the very good math and science seeds in public education, which is why your company and the state of North Carolina and the country, for that matter, is suffering on this. Same thing, by the way, I hear this all the time in Houston where I am, you know, drill, baby, drill, right? But we can't because there's not enough engineers, not even enough truck drivers to pass drug tests. I mean, so it's a problem up and down, mid skills, higher skills, all that. I think a couple things on this. So first off, competition's gonna help fix this. You know, the Obama administration put out Race to the Top, a few billion-dollar pot of money to get states to change their education laws, and half the states in the country were motivated by this several billion-dollar pot to do so. We both, everyone in this room knows that Race to the Top, a few billion-dollar pot, pales in comparison to the true Race to the Top, which is whatever city and state figures this out first and truly has a terrific public education system, they win the big prize, because here comes Fortune 500 like gangbusters. Because everyone needs to set up shop where there's a terrific employee base to fill your jobs, and where people want to live. And one of the reasons, big reason why people want to live where they live is how good are the schools for their families, right? So I think that's motivating. It's good to see the business community, and there's now more alignment from business community education I've seen ever before. And you know, again, we have to align this, because without the business community being part of this, school systems as government monopolies don't feel accountable to all of you as employers. They feel accountable to the state to produce great test takers. And those tests do not align with what you guys need, both in terms of cognitive skills and non-cognitive skills as well, right? Think about the truck driver is a great example, right? That's got nothing to do with cognitive skills. But the fact we can't get enough of them to be able to pass drug tests, clearly, whether it's home and school in a combination, we haven't done a good job teaching kids how to make smart choices, right? And we have to do a better job at that. So having business and higher ed and K-12 all line up and make sure that curriculum teaching and learning is not just being aimed at the compliance gods for the government, but being aimed at what the business community needs and wants in that community is huge. And I'm seeing that in Houston, I'm seeing that in New Orleans, I'm seeing that in Indianapolis, I'm seeing that in Chicago, I'm seeing that in Denver. More and more cities I'm seeing where the business community is getting more involved, not simply with corporate sponsorships in schools, but really diving into to the curriculum and the teacher pipeline to make sure everything is aligned. And I think that's where business can make a huge contribution.
So we can do two things. Number one is I can offer both of you the opportunity to ask me a question as long as it's either a yes or no question or multiple choice.
Or I go quicker, sorry, my bad.
Really quick. Because we've run out of time, and I know that we want as a university to present you with something.
Okay.
To thank you.
I'll go quick. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. My name's Alex. I'm working on an education technology company called Emerald Exam. And like Mr. Turner could have told you without looking, I want to have a positive impact on the world. And so I'm curious what you see as the role of technology in the classroom, which may be the long answer, so maybe skip that one. And what you would like to see in the classroom in terms of technology to make your job easier.
Education is the only industry still, when you add technology, all you've done is add an extra row to the budget and made things more expensive, right? So we got to use how you use technology as a tool to have teaching and learning get more effective. what I've seen today, and we have a KIPP school in Los Angeles, which today is the highest performing school in all of Los Angeles that does blended learning. And the benefit is not the fact that we haven't yet figured out how you have a computer teach the kids for us, but it's a fantastic tool. It's providing data for the teacher to know how to break up the classroom and target small groups of kids based on the specific skills they need, right, is one thing. And at the same time, it is engaging, allowing kids to practice. And you've got the Khan Academy flipping the classroom, all that. Homework's done at school, schoolwork's done at home. All that is a terrific way to advance this and use technology as a great tool.
Thanks. All right, I'll make this quick. Thank you very much for coming, Mike. My name is Osman Azami. I'm a senior in Wharton. I'll actually be joining Teach for America next year, teaching in Dallas, Texas.
Good for you.
Simple. Is it possible to bring the KIPP model to scale? What are the main obstacles? Mark Manella came and spoke to one of my classes, and he spoke about the extremely selective hiring practices. Do you believe the constraint of teacher talent is the main obstacle in growing the KIPP model throughout the country?
That's the nut we have to crack. And Teach for America, go TFA, go, keep growing, that's that. But then we need more innovation. You know, innovation leads to innovation. Picture NASCAR, a race car in pit row. And when the tire changers figure out a way to shave a second off their time, it forces the gas tank fillers to shave a second off their time as well. So as charters have grown and we've put pressure on the system to get better as well, we've created a hyper-competitive environment. Everyone's realizing that they don't have the human capital they need to do well and compete, not to mention for charters to grow. So it's forced innovation to happen. So my cousins in New York, KIPP, Achievement First, Uncommon Schools, they created the Relay Grad School of Education. The first time New York State has created a new institution of higher education in the last 85 years, right? It's a fantastic new grad school of education that's very much hands-on and teaches teachers how to teach in their classroom with kids by adjunct faculty that are master teachers. The Jones School of Business, where I'm in Houston, started an MBA track for principals, where MBA grads get certified to be a principal, and a local foundation will pay 80% of the loan off in 5 years if the person goes in and teaches or runs schools for 5 years. So we need more pipelines like that to happen with talent coming in at the teacher level, the principal level, and that's how we're going to then have enough to keep growing and fix this. While we're getting ready to finish up, let me just say we got lots of problems with education, guys, and we have to fix them, but let's not forget the progress we made. 25 years ago in this country, we were arguing and debating if a classroom of kids in a low-income neighborhood could succeed. We knew we could find the random kid from the hood because we were making TV movies a week about that kid, right? But could you find a whole classroom? Some people thought yes, some people thought no. When we found a classroom of kids succeeding, we couldn't believe it. It was mind-blowing. We wrote books about them. We made movies about them. Think Stand, Deliver, Jaime Escalante. We couldn't believe a whole classroom of kids in East LA were doing a great job on AP Calculus, right? Fast forward 10 years to 2000, we could find the random kid. We found hundreds of these great teachers in great classrooms. So now the debate was, can you find a whole school of kids doing this? Some people think yes, some people think no. We debate it. We find these schools, these breakthrough transformative schools. We can't believe it. We put them on the front cover of newspapers. We write books about them. We put them on 60 Minutes, right? Fast forward to this decade, we know we can find the random kid. We know we can find all these classrooms. We got hundreds of breakthrough transformative schools in low-income communities. Not enough, we need thousands, but we got hundreds. So now we raise the bar again. Now the question is, can we find a whole system that can do it? Some people think yes, some people think no, and that's where the debate is today, right? We need to win that debate and keep going, and it's not nearly enough what we've done, but look how far we've come in 20 years. Think about where we'll be in another 20 years. Thank you.
You get to get our first non-celeb award from
Non-celeb.
the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School.
I should have made a sex tape or something before I gave it. But no one would have watched it this time.
Mike, we want to thank you so much for your time today and for reminding us that there's so many challenges facing public education, but there's also so much hope. And it starts with really caring about kids and getting them the best teachers possible. So on behalf of us, we want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's very nice. Thank you. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Thank you.